you.
Good morning.
We also have Victor Bwire, who is the Deputy CEO for Media Council of Kenya. Good to have you.
Pleasure.
Karibu sana. And we are expecting Clay Muganda, who's going to be joining us as we carry on with the show. But let me start, first of all, of course, with what's making the headlines today, and that is the death and sad demise of the former First Lady, Lucy Kibaki. And let me start with you, Koki, maybe on some of the fond memories that you have of the First Lady, former First Lady.
I think the former First Lady can be said to be a fighter and a person of integrity. She normally spoke her mind in spite of the repercussions, and she was really passionate about what she liked. At least I know one of my cousins was in her choir, so she
she also had,
she had the choir.
The First Lady's choir.
Yeah, she brought back the sense of when we had Nyaoism and when we were in school, we used to sing a lot of Tawala.
Absolutely, I remember the Muungano choir and all that. And she kind of brought up those memories. And it's unfortunate that some very good things that are started kind of just go with the person.
Exactly.
You'd have expected State House would still have
the same.
Absolutely.
And we really enjoyed her, her conversations around women issues. And I think more or less the representation of the feminine aspect of women in leadership, because before then it was all a man's game. The podiums would just be full of men, but now we could see that the women started coming in, and we could see the leaders from a more family perspective.
Right, and also the fact that as a country we had not had a First Lady
in a long time.
For a good 24 years, I believe it was. So, Victor, maybe some of the fond memories that you have of the former First Lady.
Thank you. One, our condolences to the family of the former president. Two, and more importantly, one is that I remember Lucy as a person who so sincere. I mean, her sense of sincerity was just admirable.
It was evident.
I mean, he could, irrespective of, like Kobe said, he would say her mind and what he believed in. So that stood out. And then two, the other thing that I remember as a journalist, I wrote about her story, and it was purely about those protocol issues. And when she came in, like you are saying, after a long time having not had a first lady. There was a bit of serious protocol issues, and I remember I was tasked, I was working Nation then, to do a story on the protocol goofs around First Lady. So, and I found it sometimes when I would view the clips, sometimes he would be the last person to wave for Kenyan when he was accompanying the president going out, and it was. But gradually she picked up. I mean, in terms of those protocol issues. But frankly, as a Kenyan, she was so sincere to what she believed in that some of us wondered he would point out whether in the government where his husband was the president or wherever something he felt was wrong and needed to be corrected. So
very, very vocal. And yes, remember, we're still taking your tributes, and what you remember most of the former First Lady, Lucy Kibaki. Of course, as a country, we're still mourning, and we're still waiting for the family to get back from London so that we can have some official communication, and that will continue as we go along. Now, as we continue, the 3rd of May is World Press Freedom Day. That's going to be next week, I believe.
Yes.
And moving on the conversation, would like to now, first of all, just look at some of the strides and progress that we have made as the media in the country and also world over. And to start us off, we have a story, and this is highlighting mainly on blogging, and we do know that there was a lot of arrests left, right, and center. We know Judge Mumbi also made a ruling not too long ago, which was looked at as a win from one end, but maybe not from another end. So we are going to have that coming in. So let's first of all look at this story, then we can begin the conversation on the gains that media has made.
It was a dramatic culmination of what has been a tough 2 weeks for bloggers in Kenya. Blogger Anthony Njoroge Mburu alias Waime Mburu was released by the Mombasa court after his arrest last week. He was accused of posting on Facebook derogatory statements against Kiambu Governor William Kabogo, whom he alleged was operating a substandard poultry business in Kwale County. There was drama at the court during Njoroge's appearance. Njoroge's supporters were led by Kabogo's fierce rival Ferdinand Waititu. The arrest and subsequent release of journalist turned blogger Yasin Juma appearing to be the straw that broke the camel's back, releasing an avalanche of police summons on 9 other bloggers accused of going against the content of the Information and Communication Act. The 9, among them Cyprian Nyakundi, Patrick Msafari, Seth Odongo, Charles Ndienya, Anthony Mburu, Eddie Ila, Felix G. Cord, George Nyongesa and Robert Alai are accused of contravening the Information and Communications Act. But Robert Alai, one of the summoned bloggers, is raising concern over what he terms as government's unrelenting quest in ensuring bloggers who appear to critique it are silenced completely.
Even the arrest of Yasin Juma, I was checking the timeline of Yasin Juma. I've been looking for the wrong things he did. It is so wrong that the government can try to target a journalist just because of doing what he's trained to do. It's like jailing a doctor because he treated a malaria patient. This is what the journalists are trained to do. They're trained to inform the people. This is a professional journalist. He was not posting any bad picture. So why do you arrest him? Why do you take yourself through all this stress of being portrayed badly? Then you say that the media report the government negatively. It is not the media, it's the government reporting itself negatively.
Section 29 of the Information and Communication Act stipulates that a person who by means of a licensed telecommunication system sends a message that he knows to be false for the purposes of causing annoyance, inconvenience or needless anxiety to another person commits an offence and shall be liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 50,000 shillings or a jail term not exceeding 3 months or both.
The government is trying to misuse an act which is itself illegal. You know, the Communication Act, the Section 29B of the Kenya Communication Act, Cap 411, it's very wrong to indicate that, you can be taken to a police station for causing personal annoyance using a license. Twitter is not even a licensed telecommunication equipment.
The blogger's statement seemingly being echoed by opposition legislators who are accusing government of witch hunt.
Jubilee has employed every trick in the books to curtail civil liberties, including media freedom, as a way of entrenching its rule over the people.
We cannot accept that kind of reversal. It's totally unacceptable to keep somebody while you are still fishing around or trying to get charges or trying to make charges that are proper.
But the Inspector General of Police remains adamant that the bloggers indeed have broken the law and he wants them to answer to their crimes without shifting blame.
They broke the law and they know it. There is legitimate reportage, there is legitimate exercise of freedom of whatever you want to do, but there are limits. You don't cross certain lines. You break the law, obviously, you become guests of these officers next to me. So when you are invited, don't blame the officers, you blame yourself.
The bloggers will be heading to the Directorate of Criminal Investigations under the stewardship of lawyer James Sorengo on Wednesday. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
So that is a story that we had packaged earlier on, and it is to do with the bloggers and the government weighing in to arrest them. And of course, that's what we'd like to talk about. Just a reminder, 3rd of May is World Press Freedom Day, and we'd just like to look at the progress, if any, that we have made as the media fraternity, both locally and internationally. Before continuing with the debate, let me also just introduce Clay Muganda, who has now joined us on the set. Welcome, Clay, and good to have you. But moving on now with the conversation, let me start with you, Victor. Generally speaking, whether we have made gains as the media, especially, let's start locally, looking at the terrain that we're in.
Thank you, Mike. Now, from where we sit, there's tremendous growth. Obviously, we have made tremendous growth. While there are challenges, but to me, I see the number and some instance quality and outlets growing. And in that, in a sense, is improving plurality and diversity, because once we have 141 radio stations, then obviously that means the mouths have increased.
Opened up.
We have now 64 TV stations. That's again huge. We have about 60 magazines on the market. Again, that in itself is opening up content for people, jobs for journalists, or those people who want to engage. So to us, we see that as a growth. And again, looking at even the quality of journalism. While people have issues here and there, but you see Kenyan journalists competing. In fact, if you look at the CNN award and other global awards, you see Kenyan journalists competing only with South Africa. In fact, Nigeria is no, I mean, so that to us gives us the confidence that our journalists are doing well, despite some of the challenges, and there's growth in the industry. We have seen quite a number of now international agencies based in Kenya. In fact, most of their newsrooms is full of Kenyans. And that again tells you, I mean, to us where we sit, we feel that's growth in itself.
Okay.
So I mean, looking at training colleges, we have now over 120 training colleges for media and journalism, irrespective of their quality and other related issues. But to us, again, that's an industry that's
indication of growth.
That's to us is growth.
Okay.
So where we sit, we see growth, but more needs to be done in terms of, like you mentioned earlier in our informal discussion, quality and the related.
Right.
But to us, we are seeing growth.
Okay.
And again, now with digital migration, a number of our journalists are gradually moving away from mainstream media to content production and selling content, which again, to us is growth.
Okay. Let me come to you, Clay. You sit on the desk, and when your view, do you see like there has been general good strides made, especially in the country, for media space?
Well, you can actually say yes, there's growth in quantity. I think we cannot forget about quality, because for me, from the desk, I tend to think that quality is dipping. Quantity, we might be having all these radio stations and all these TV stations and all that, but we cannot forget about quality, even the number of colleges also. You're saying that there are 160 training colleges, but what do they churn out? What is their curriculum, and what's the quality of whatever they give out, they teach the students? And when it comes to TV stations, like with digital migration, I don't know whether you've actually had time sometimes to watch them. Most of the so-called TV stations that actually are on set-top free-to-air channels, which are on set-top boxes, the kind of things, whatever they air, actually, it's better to have 10 and have good quality, 10 stations with good quality content than have 120, and actually the content they have, you cannot actually even watch it for 5 minutes. You even wonder, like, okay, fine, are these people really making money? Apart from even the money, who is supposed to watch this thing that they air? Okay,
so I guess growth is subject to, you know.
Yeah, I think there should be growth in both ways. The quantity should be there, yes, but also we should look at quality also, because there's no point of having 120 TV stations and actually you can only watch 10 or 15 because the kind of, I'll give you an example. There's a TV station, I think it's a Luo TV station. Everything, all the messages they give you are in the Luo, but 90% of their programming is actually are old English movies, you see, because they don't have local content. The kind of content also that they actually broadcast, it's not something that you actually sit down and watch because of the kind of the quality. So I've spoken to some producers and I asked them, like, why do we have all these things? They tell me that some of these people think that going on air, it's just, you just need a studio and that's it. They're not hiring journalists, because there's something came here that nowadays to be on TV, you just need a good face and probably a good voice and stuff like that. So they sometimes do their things themselves. So they're not hiring journalists, they're just hiring probably their friends and all that. So that is actually affecting the quality of what we air.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
There's a media space has opened up, we can say that.
In terms of numbers,
as it was
quality,
yes.
Okay, so according to Clay, quality is dipping. Now I'll come to you, Koki. And I think you're in the right position to really tell us what is happening, because you're the one who's churning out, as it were, the journalists through teaching them. And first of all, maybe starting with just your comments on what the two gentlemen had to say. He says there is growth, there is numbers, but according to Clay, there is growth in terms of numbers, but the quality is dipping.
Actually, digital migration, like Clay says, brought in plurality, the ability for many people to participate in the production of content that would be relevant to their target audiences. But the other thing that brings in is that we move away from broadcast and we move into narrowcast. It might be unfortunate that the narrowcasting is more about, you know, maybe tribal I think
it's reduced down, to tribes.
Yeah, so people have now gone back to their cocoons and they want to listen to content that's relevant to them in their context, which could be another issue. But however, in terms of training, many students now look at journalism as a viable profession. They see it as somewhere they can fit, and they are, like I think Victor says, they just don't see themselves working within a media house. They actually see themselves as entrepreneurs. The problem would be the need to enter, to penetrate the mainstream media or the big media houses is a challenge for them, because then they are not able to sell their content easily. They might not have the networking skills. They might not even know where these other smaller TV stations and radio stations are, and exactly what the job market is.
Okay. Victor, is relevance, because talking about the digital migration and the fact that we have many numbers now, what we have tended to do, especially as a country, is bring it down to language. So if it's the Luo, it's Kikuyu, it's Meru, is relevance language, or does there need to be context within that language? Because I may be in, say for instance, Kisumu. Does the fact that you broadcast something in the Luo make it relevant?
Thanks. One of the issues that we can't stop is that news has become a product for sale. And that's why even you look at the last IPI meeting, the International Press Institute meeting, where they discuss about the new models of running media, is that we can't run away. Now we have opened the industry and said digital migration. The first thing we have done is to allow all those media stations to come up. Then with the economies of scale, there were almost 80 TV stations. There are now 64. I'm sure in the next 2 years there will be 30. And that just
once they realize that content is not just having a studio and
that's the thing. So we couldn't open and at the same time tell people we need only 10. So they are paying about 140 to 300,000 per month in terms of being hosted, right? The various banks and the rest. So that's a very huge cost. I know 6 which are closing in the next 2-3 months. So that will be taken in terms of numbers, because we just needed to allow. Then as people go out, the economies of scale, they
level it out.
Level it out. So that's one thing. Two, like you're saying again, I find it so easy. I find it that editors like Clay always remove themselves from the quality of journalism and leave it to trainers and owners. Yet, when I was employed in the media, I was never employed by the media owner. It's these editors who pick the quality.
Who comes on
so
board.
Why don't they go for the quality and not the faces and the legs? I've never understood that issue.
That is
a valid point there.
Because we need to see editors in this thing. Whenever we get wrong headlines, whatever, they say it's the reporters. Editors have removed themselves from the process of this news, the mistakes and the rest. So you need to honor editors so that you take up this responsibility to help also mentor and help journalists improve. But just blaming them, obviously, Robbie knows that our training institutions are not speaking to the industry, and some of them are still stuck on all the curriculum that doesn't speak to the industry. Quite a number of universities and colleges are now picking up, reviewing their curriculum to match. So that's something. Then, as you mentioned, media is also culture. And if people feel they want to express themselves in Luya and Luo, and they are learning from what happened from radio, where the vernacular radio stations seem to have picked up at some stage. Yes. So the TV are also picking up. But gradually again, you find that even those stations, in fact, one of the complaints we received about a radio station in Central was that the audience is complaining that this is supposed to be a Kikuyu radio station, but 7 out of 10 minutes they're speaking in English instead of vernacular. Most of the journalists who are getting into those media stations are Bontaos, who are not very conversant with those languages.
With the local language.
The languages. So they are on air, yes, it's a Luo station, but they can sustain. So again, gradually we are seeing most of the stations that started at purely vernacular are not managing it, and gradually coming back to Kiswahili English.
I think it was easier for radio to grow, vernacular radio to grow, because it's something portable, It's something that I mean, you can be doing your work and you carry it and you listen to it as you. So it was very easy for the uptake for radio. TV is a totally different thing
because it's visual.
It's a totally different thing. But also producing material content for TV is also expensive. If you speak to the producers, these independent producers, I asked one of them, like, there's a Meru TV station, and I was asking, like, what is all this? I mean, because everything is done from, she does everything, the owner does everything from her sitting room. She has two or three presenters. So I asked, and then a producer broke it down for me and told me, like, if she's supposed to do like a series, this is how much it will cost per show, and we need to do a season that is 13 episodes. They cannot raise that kind of money. So I think also we should have put some threshold. Yes, instead of letting people invest and then, okay, we watch them close down again. There should have been some threshold. I mean, like, okay, fine, for you to start, at least you should be able to have maybe 30% local content or 30% content, or I don't know if it's about the cost, or I don't know if it's about the cost.
That would be an interesting thing to look at. For instance, if you are to open a financial institution, you have to have a certain amount of money that proves you can run that financial institution. Why is it with media that you can allow you to do anything you want, then let you shut down, as opposed to saying, look, we have to protect quality, protect the institution of journalism, so that you're not just churning out anything.
You know, one of the funny things is that out of all those entrepreneurs in media, the TV stations we are talking about, none of them is a journalist. And to them, it was just purely business. And most of them are entrepreneurs. And I mean, precisely. And they could prove, because there's a form you fill to show sustainability that you will manage that thing. So they can manage to get partners and show you that in a proposal they can manage. But once they go to practice, and these are people who, you know, in Kenya everybody thinks he's a media expert. Everybody knows about media.
Thank you.
And yet they are not. So some of these guys came purely as businessmen. Now they're finding that running a media industry is not the same as running at a factory industrial area. They're different, and even mainstream media houses like Standard, you find that I mean, in terms of business models, our business model cannot be like a bakery or something. Because, so some of them are finding it so difficult, and I know those who have applied, they are looking for partners because they are now selling out, because they thought is that you just open, you'll get cheap journalists and get in, but commercial and such guys can't listen. We are doing a model for community radio station, the sustainability model, the business model to running a newsroom, and a few of them, out of the 17, 6 are picking up. But the digital guys came in as pure, and remember again how those frequencies at that time were being given. It was pure again a very close system, and I will tell you the way. So again, there are those guys who got those licenses immediately, who are not necessarily journalists or understand.
Let's hear from Robin. Maybe to add value, I think journalism or journalists or the media fraternity per se is very porous in terms of allowing people who are not professionals or people who are not trained to be journalists to take very important positions in the media space, even to develop content without being able to, you know, think through the content, understanding the technicality behind the content, you know, just the sound aspect of it, where to place your cameras, what to do with them, how to create a set. I mean, we just allow anybody who has some money to get into, and that just demonstrates that as an industry, we probably don't take our profession as serious as it should. A friend of mine yesterday, we were having a discussion with her. She said, is journalism a profession? I said, yes, it is. But you see, I told her, but her argument is valid. Like, when you talk about legs, and though that is a bit sexist, and faces, are you talking about these legs and faces also having that bit of training, understanding what goes behind the scenes, isn't it? Are you also talking about, you know, getting people who are actually trained, accredited to be journalists, not just by the institution, the university, but also by a professional body, so that when they get into the media, they have the skill set and the creativity.
Let me come to you and let's look at what Victor mentioned earlier, and this is in regards to the editors being involved. The fact that the quality is dipping is not just a result of the numbers being churned out. We also have editors who are responsible for training and even bringing some of these journalists into the media houses?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. You cannot actually exonerate yourselves and say that you're totally blameless. But our problem, actually, the problem of journalism in Kenya goes a little bit back, maybe like 10, 15 years ago. What happened is that the airwaves were opened. So we ended up having all these TV stations and all these radio stations all of a sudden, but we did not have enough training colleges. So many colleges, backstreet colleges and all these came up in a rush to fill that void, you know. So like, okay, fine, we have 5 TV stations now. Where do they get the journalists from? By that time, I think, we only had School of Journalism at Nairobi University, which was actually a postgraduate diploma course. Most people were actually used to go to Cardiff, all the older KMC, then later they would go to Cardiff. So what happens is that we opened the airwaves before setting up a backup. You know, we didn't have a mainframe like colleges and all that. So many colleges came up backstreet where they were offering whatever's what do you call this thing, and at the same time offering travel and offering journalism and I mean, the aim was just to churn out. Then it came now to production when we started doing local production. So again, they got into that. Now they're teaching producers, they're teaching cameramen. So this is where the quality started dipping. So what we get in the newsroom nowadays, you get somebody, but this person believes that I have been taught, and they're actually totally unmentorable. They have a fixed mentality. Yeah, it is that mentality that already I have made it. I think it's also to do maybe with our education system, where we have this instant coffee mentality. You know, I want to be a journalist, and you think like you walk into a newsroom, and the next day you're going to be a political analyst, or you're going to be the head anchor, or I mean, there's this thing about we've not. That's why your friend asked you, is this really a profession? Because we see it more as glamour, more as showbiz. You know,
it's more of the showbiz side of it. Okay, Victor, I want us to move on to something else. But first, before we move on from there, what's the solution for this problem we have? I think we agree generally that the quality is dipping, despite the numbers. So there needs to be a solution. Victor?
One, that's doable. And one of the things we are looking at is creating a conversation between editors and the trainers. That we need to have a conversation to allow journalists being trained in the various training colleges that are accredited to find a way of getting some internship or apprenticeship in newsrooms as a learner, because that's one thing that is also missing. That somebody has gone up to 4th year or a master's, but he has never written even a single story, has no newsroom experience. Then you bring him or her simply because he has a master's, but he never wrote anything. So that's a challenge. So we need to see more working between editors and training colleges. Two, we are now harmonized the training of journalists to deal with the issue you are raising about training colleges. So the Media Council has set up a curriculum that will be taught in all colleges teaching journalism in the country. The curriculum has been validated by Kenya Institute of, KICD, TVET, NEC, and Commission for Higher Education. So we are launching it very soon. We needed to start it in January. So we are launching a curriculum that will be purely now all colleges teaching journalism in this country must use that curriculum. We have now a team we have set up that will be going around colleges to do inspection of colleges, to check if they have equipment we have. And the worst has been even the lecturers. That quite a number of our colleges have people who are previous literature, linguistic training journalists.
Because when most of these backstreet colleges opened, you know, they didn't even have lecturers. So they had to get people from newsrooms. So you are actually churning out, you're teaching diploma people at the end of their course. They're supposed to be to get a diploma. But the person you've picked from the newsroom actually also has a diploma, the same experience.
Maybe can I add value to that? I think, you know, in terms of even having intergenerational career journalists, there's a big gap. because you can't really say who is mentoring who. The last person I remember mentoring me is Joe Cathy. And, you know, in between there is really no one, we can see that, you know, can fit his stature. So there's a problem there.
We are also requiring now lecturers to be accredited by them. So we are checking. We have asked all colleges to submit to us all their lecturers in journalism, so that then we see who are these people teaching journalism.
I get to hear so many people drop, so many of these newer journalists or young journalists drop Joe Cathy's name. And I always feel like I wish I would call Joe Cathy and give him copy of somebody who says, like, I was taught by the best, I was taught by Joe Cathy. Because if Joe Cathy saw that copy that the person who says he taught has written, I think he would probably have a heart attack. Because we get to hear this a lot. So I think it was a case of, okay, fine, I just need to pass my exam. Then there's no place where I'm going to, when they get to the real world where this thing needs to be used, they cannot put it down to good use. That is, I think, the problem.
Okay, just to add on to what he's saying, maybe, do we have space for mentorship? And do we have journalists who are good enough, so to speak, to mentor others, who they can look up to?
Yeah, let me talk about the challenge of print, specifically print media journalistic training. It is really been faced with a lot of challenge within even the university environment, where people don't understand the importance of teaching print across all journalistic, concentrations. They think that, print is not a key issue. We are always battling with that idea that you need to have print as a core subject for all the journalism students, whether in broadcast. But you find there's so much resistance to it because people say everything has gone digital, so you'll get everything on.
But digital you still have to write.
Yes, but we spend a lot of time just explaining to even people at the university that print is the soul of
digital. You still have to think. The problem with these people is that they never want to think.
And secondly, you'll find that the kind of student taking print will be an A student, B student. Very rarely will you find those kind of students, A, B students, wanting to do journalism, unless they are really passionate about it. Thirdly, for you to be a journalist, you have to be passionate. So you find that most people, when they see the glamour, they see the dresses, they see the the nice look, the nice sofa, they think that basically that's what it is.
And that's why they have missed it. The training institutions have missed it. That they're still stuck in the old model. And two, for you to be a journalist, you must be a good writer. Whether you are print, whether you are online,
because I remember one of the units that we're being taught is writing for print and writing for broadcast. You see,
but we have missed that.
And for me, journalism is journalism. I mean, I don't believe in this thing like, I'm a broadcast journalist. No, because I've seen people who actually. The most successful TV station probably in this country, the guy has spent 90% of his time in this media house as a print journalist. He moved to TV just the other day, but he's one of the best. So I believe,
moving on to since we're looking at generally media progress, let's look at safety and security of journalists. Because that, of course, has been in question. Remember, there's a time some journalists were assaulted by police officers because, according to the police, they were going to, bring out a story that could cause issues. Have we made progress in that regard? Let's start with Victor.
Thank you. It's a challenge. And safety of journalists is not just a Kenya problem. It's a global problem. That's why the UN has actually declared the next 10 years as the UN Action Plan on Safety and Security of Journalists, global. And that's coming out from the many cases. And when we talk safety of journalists, not about the guns and what. We are talking about basic working environment for journalists that allows them deliver their work. It's been a challenge. We are making strides, yes, but largely, while we blame others, external factors, but safety and security of journalists gradually has become to be an internal thing. Because from the study the Media Council did recently, we see the trends changing, that unlike before when purely it was state police harassing journalists most of the time. The landscape is changing, and gradually we are seeing journalists raising the issue of political activists, politicians, businessmen who think, and editors and their own journalists. The journalists are even a threat to their own journalists, especially editors. So the trends are changing, and what that tells us is that yes, we want to look at outside factors, but we must also look at the inside factors in our own newsroom that make it difficult for journalists to operate. And that has one, police, yes, and purely because police did not, there has never been a conversation or a slow conversation between police and state to understand roles. And that's why we have now programs even visiting Kiganjo and the rest, just to talk about media freedom and police-media relations. Gradually, again, what we are saying is that, and with the IPOA now, that individual police officers take responsibility.
Right.
If an officer has done something, it's not government. It is a police officer who must be taken individually. And gradually we are seeing now officers very keen. And you see now arresting journalists, like the recent case of David, they will throw him in the cell, they didn't record anything. Because they know if they do something that is not, so again, the environment with the new constitution, with the new people aware of their rights, a bit. But that's having been said, look at our newsroom structures. Are they conducive for safety of journalists? One, like just look here in this studio. If a fire was to break out, where do I get out? Because those are safety issues. What are the exits here in this studio? You know, those are basic things. You send your cameraman, very expensive equipment to wherever area, Slum to cover. How safe is that journalist with that equipment? There is a Garissa attack, there is a Westgate attack. You send a journalist there. I mean, what protective device have you given him? Is he protected? Does he have a bulletproof? Does he, you know, so that again, we are, how many of our journalists here have contracts, for example? People have worked as correspondents and freelancers for the rest of their lives. And that affects their security. So safety of their journalists is not just about the police arresting us, but we must also look internally. What is Media Council doing? What is KUJ doing? What in terms of helping journalists get contracts, get a minimum salary or something, so that this guy is in the right frame of mind to work.
Clay, your comments on media safety and security of journalists.
Okay, fine. Victor raises some very pertinent questions actually about safety in the newsrooms and the safety of, when you send a journalist very expensive equipment. Most of the time, if you send a journalist out there and something happens, the first thing you ask is the camera okay?
In fact, there's even an incident where a cameraman fainted and dropped the camera, and the first thing is the camera okay before you even take care of it.
But also when it comes to the biggest threat actually to media freedom or to the safety of journalists is actually not the newsroom incidents. Yes, they're there, but I think the biggest threat to is state interference, because state has monopoly of power, and all these things, and the machinery. So the people who can, because it's very rare that you'll find that David Odongo could not have been arrested by other journalists, and there have been very many other cases. Yes, I know that these internal cases like the newsroom, the ones you mentioned. The problem we have, and this is something that actually I've always complained about, I've said it here a number of times, is that we Kenyans, we don't respect journalists. That's why your friend asked you, is it their profession?
Right.
And then the biggest is that we don't have strong media bodies.
Okay, sorry, Clay, let me just get some comments from Koki. I think there's a slight challenge there. But Koki, in regards to, journalists and the fact that it is not viewed as a profession, is that because of the way we have packaged it? Is it because of the fact that maybe the way we have graduated from journalism, as it should be, to where we are now looking at more the faces, the legs, the looks, as opposed to what quality of what people churn out?
I think Media Council has tried to put in some steps that I think are important. For example, the training bit of it before being accredited, etc. But like I said, media as a profession is porous. You find that maybe your child trains to be a journalist but won't penetrate the mainstream media.
Right.
And you find that people who are kind of connected, people who are known, or people in showbiz, entertainment, take that position and, you know, assume roles that otherwise would be usefully handled by journalists. So because of that porous nature and the fight with the online bloggers, of course, there is that jurisdiction confusion when you hear Robert saying that when we journalists, he's not a journalist.
Because that's the question, is a blogger a journalist?
Yeah, yeah. So when the blogger begins to feel that they're very powerful vis-a-vis and compare themselves to the media, we begin to worry. It means that we as a profession and the fraternity generally, we do not sit down and agree how to strengthen our position in society, because we are the fourth estate.
Right.
We are not the fifth, sixth, we are the fourth. And the other, it's very powerful. And we do not really put our foot down to assert ourselves. And then again, the career progression, like I said. I mean, I trained in SOJ, but I've never worked in a media house. So many people who train in journalism schools normally find themselves out there in NGOs or in government doing other things instead of practicing, because either the space is too confined or the ability to penetrate becomes an issue.
Victor, what is it that creates that blurred line so that people think the minute they start blogging they become journalists? Whereas if you even called a lawyer, my learned friend, when you're not a lawyer, they'll be very offended. You know, so why is it that people can actually take up, you know, just writing an article and posting it on your blog, making them a journalist, whereas it's a profession that you have to, you know, study through?
Journalism is a profession, and it meets the three criteria for any profession. It has theories, it has a class, you are accredited, you know, you go through a process, you are examined. That's a profession. So journalism in Kenya meets a profession requirement. So to us, journalism, tell your friend, journalism is a profession. Now,
she's watching, I'm sure.
Better be very clear.
But true, and I've made this discussion because I've had a discussion with bloggers, and we have no problem. Bloggers are not journalists. They're bloggers, and they do what they do. They fill in a space that is purely theirs. Right. Alternative media has existed over the years, and bloggers can fill that space as bloggers and do their business without necessarily feeling that they must be journalists.
It's like which doctors
calling
going to a KMA meeting.
Yes. So we respect them for what they are doing. But there are reasons why the bloggers and journalists, and for that reason, because in a news making process, there's a news making process where I get a story, I talk to my editor, and there's a process of deciding which but I go as a blogger, I go pick anything on you, and what is the process, what is the quality, what have it gone. So for that reason,
the authenticity of the story, whereas a journalist has certain rules and regulations before you even post.
So to us, we are very clear in our mind, and we support them in their own way. They fill a space that is alternative. Let them continue being what they are doing. Journalists, and we have said this before, that there are particular issues that you raise that we need to look at for us to satisfy the challenges that journalism in Kenya is facing, that if we continue hiding, we will not solve. One, where is the leadership in journalism? Right. Where are the editors? Where are the senior journalists helping in mentoring? You know, where are the editors guild, for example, some of these matters? Because we must, if something comes up today, a law against media, we are always found panting, because we are never organized. We never meet as a profession just to review we have the peer review mechanisms for journalists, for example. If I call something, and once Clay, who is a serious, distinguished journalist, once he became an editor, he becomes a manager. He's now concerned about financial issues. And
I still write.
We are denying the industry best brains.
Clay, why is there that gap from editors? Is it that once they, like he says, once one becomes an editor, and especially one who's renowned, then maybe you're filled with other duties, managerial duties, until the core business suffers?
I think yes, I would agree that the way we've actually run our journalism in this country, or media, is totally different from the way it's done in other places. I'll just give you, when I was an intern, that was very many years ago, there's an editor who actually, he was an associate editor, and he was a travel writer. Until now, he's still a travel writer. He's not risen to the level of editorial director. He's not risen to the level of executive editor. He's still an associate editor. So what happens in this case is that our levels of reward or of promotion here is what actually, our values is what differs, you know. I feel like, okay, fine, why don't you let me remain as an associate editor for 10 years or 15 years, but then keep on raising, let me, give me a raise based on experience. Don't give me another post. Don't give me another position. But here you see, we tend to believe so much in positions. So that is actually why you find that a journalist who was in the media house like 15 years ago is already out there because he already reached his peak or her peak.
Exactly.
He cannot now survive in the newsroom anymore. So I think it's also the way, I don't know whether it's to do with the country or the way we actually rise. We rise maybe too fast, and we don't reach a plateau. And just to give you an example, like probably our economy, we always keep on saying like, oh, you know, this year our economy is going to grow by 6%, next year it will be 7%. For the past 10 years, I think the German economy has been at the same thing, at the, maybe 4.8. It's reached a plateau, but they're doing still much better than us. So I think also it's our value system.
Our value system.
Yeah, but then there's something that I was talking about before. The thing about safety of journalists. We do not respect journalists in this country, and I don't know whether it's because journalists don't respect themselves.
Yes.
But also another thing is our media bodies are not strong enough. Kenya Union of Journalists is a trade union, it's not a professional body. You see, it's a trade union, basically. The other one, Media Council of Kenya, is full of suits. You know, it's,
we are regulated.
Then we don't even have, this is the only country where we keep on saying that, oh, we're a vibrant media, we are the best in East Africa. We don't even have a press center, we don't even have a media center where we can actually meet and discuss our own things. You know, we don't have a professional body for the media. I mean, for me, where I studied or where I did my internship is that if actually I gave out my press card, then let's say we are in a queue and I showed my press pass and there's a politician in the queue, I will be given first priority.
Like if you give the media council card, you'll be given priority.
So I think we don't have strong bodies. The others are just suits, you know, like the other one, I call it Editors Guild. I don't even know what actually they always do. I try very much to understand what they do, and they never come out. They never come out to protect the, as the Indians would say, mutundogos, you know. They never come out so much. We're not very, very strong, and that's why I think we tend to fall in all these pitfalls where a police officer or can just say like, okay, fine, let me arrest David Odongo, throw it
largely the quality. And I want us to look at quality before we wind up. The quality of the stories that are coming out, and coming to you, Koki, is it because at the education level we are not giving what is required, so that by the time journalists are actually coming out to, you know, in the market, the quality of stories, is it because we're in a generation where Generation X, things are just completely, you know, done differently?
Let's talk about the generation. You know, the millennial is a person who is made out of his own mind. The millennial is someone who, you know, to kind of when they face a bit of difficulty, they find it very difficult to move on with what you're telling them. Maybe that's why they are so adamant with the way they're saying. And unmentorable, according to but once you, the problem with them is you need to explain to them, all right? You need to explain to them why certain things have to be done. I can just give you an example. I mentor them when they're doing their projects. You find that someone, you have to tell her, no, you need to go and re-edit this, you know, whole situation. And they get so agitated and angry. But it takes the 3 months for them to realize, oh, I needed this mentoring. So you have to give them more explanation. And they're not as desperate as we used to be. You know, for us who are desperate to get a job, you're desperate to find yourself. It's like it's a gift.
To them, they have rich parents, and then they have sponsors,
they are okay, and they have options. Actually, they have options. They can say, I don't need to work, I need to be an entrepreneur, and they're very adamant about
I need to get a sponsor.
No, please, that is a bit sexist.
No, even men, I mean,
but you find that in terms of interest, let me just give you a quick peek in terms of what the student today would want to be. Rarely would you find that they would want to do print media. They think it's tedious.
It's also too much in the background. They want to be seen.
Then yes, then they think of broadcast, they like the cameras, they like anything digital, they like editing, they like things that they can move with very fast. But they don't want to do the back-end work, the content development. So you have very few interested in script writing, for example, or screenwriting, or even just writing stories. So then you have the bulk of them doing PR, and you know PR manages the media. So they're interested more in that, the corporate aspect of it. Then the remaining lot will go into the development world, which is another world that they fit in very well because they're able to generate content relevant for that world. So that it's not necessarily maybe the quantity, it's just the interests that are kind of different. And I always say a good university or college speaks in terms of how many of their alumni get into the media and make it big. For me, the outcome, the education outcome is not numbers, and that's a problem the universities have. They want you to have 2,000 students doing journalism, and then you ask them, so where will these 2,000 go? So it's not the outcome in journalism, because it's a blend of theory and practice, should be how many of your students penetrate and make it.
And make it.
Yes.
Victor.
Inequality, one of the challenges, and both I've worked in a newsroom, at least newsroom, and I've taught at the university for quite some time. But I teach.
It's not just the suits.
I teach university, and I'm a trainer who goes out and comes even here standard to train journalists. So that's passion that we are mentioning. But two, one of the challenges is from the training aspect, the quality. There's a serious issue of quality in journalism, and every day when we do media monitoring at our place and we check, you see in factual stories and true stories and very basic small things that any journalist who is keen would not have done and done. And that worries us, and many times we call and just because to find out. But one of the challenges you raise is the quality. I've taught journalism for the last 13 years or so at the university level, different universities, and I have now 48 of my students working in various newsrooms across. And I take a lot of my time. That's why I teach one university at a time. I take a lot of my time because journalism is a practical course. It's not a theory thing. And I'll take class like at the University of Nairobi, where I had 8 or 7 in my unit. And we take a lot of time. They write, we change, we exchange, I edit their stories, and I tell them, we want to do this assignment, but at the end of the day, I want it to be published in National Standard or whatever, so that they see. So I take a lot of my time with my students. But what is happening in most of the universities, one lecturer is teaching 12 universities at a time. Now the guy is almost on, look at the newspapers and look at the number of lecturers we are losing on road accidents. You'll be surprised, because somebody has a class in Mombasa, he has a class in Moi, and now once you have 3,000 students, how do you manage in a practical class like journalism, where you need to edit and check and help somebody grow? So that has also helped, played a big role, that we have no time to check, to help our students know what's the basic in journalism. So that has affected quality.
Yeah, then, and that's the role of Media Council, to come and find out how many students have been taught broadcast.
That's what we are doing.
Those
like
are
I said, we have set up now a committee on college inspection and accreditation that will help us deal with that. And there's a 9-man committee that's now 9 people or person moving around.
Maybe as you're winding up, Clay, how has social media affected the terrain of journalism and media generally?
Okay, I always hear people nowadays, and anytime an issue comes up, I always tweet. Like yesterday, I told them, like, okay, fine, because I knew that people are probably going to start complaining, like, oh, this is how we should cover this issue of Mama Lucy Kibaki and this, because now, citizen journalism, you cannot wish it away. Actually, it is more or less like the fifth estate. You cannot wish it away. It has its place, and these people, they have, I only have a problem with them sometimes when they actually think that the best thing to do is not do their job as like, let me write my stories, but to actually start bashing the fourth estate, that is us, how we are doing our work. You see, how we are doing our, it's not a competition. Because one thing I've always wanted to ask them, keep on saying, oh, social media is taking over, bloggers are taking, I have always wanted to ask them, tell me which blogger in this country has actually, which makes more money than any mainstream media house.
No, Gadara, you can ask Gadara.
No, there isn't. There isn't. So, I mean, whatever you want to say, you have freedom to say it. I think it's only that they need to temper, because there's a lot of sometimes virtual and all that, and at some point you might see like, okay, fine, so this is, it's the blogging world, that's where logic goes to die, you know. In Kenya, if you want to kill logic, let it go to the bloggers, you know. But that should not be the case. They have a place that they have their own space. I think they only need to work within their own space and probably make themselves better, or whatever it is that they aspire to do. But they should not think that actually they know so much about the workings of the mainstream media houses. I mean, yesterday I had to tell somebody, I always tell them, like, the people, some of them are people who think with their fingers. You see, they think with their fingers, as long as they have a keyboard, it's just that's it.
Type away.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
They've not, I should not say that actually it has affected. Maybe it has made it has made the mainstream media actually look up and say, like, okay, fine, we're doing this, but there's somebody out there, you know, who is actually also looking at what, so we don't just channel things. It's probably making us more vigilant.
Okay. Maybe as we're winding up, Robbie, possibly your closing comments on just generally the strides that we have made as a country when it comes to journalism, because it's not all bad.
No, it's super, actually. I'm just hoping that mainstream media, especially the big media houses, will refocus their business model to think about more content creation. Because I don't want us to depend so much on foreign, you know, what are they called? Distributors like DSTV, for them to come in and kind of churn out whatever content they want because they have money. I think if you tweak your business model a bit, then we'll have a variety of things to watch and a variety of perspectives to watch.
Okay.
I would like to applaud KTN for Kanju. I mean, things like the Kanju
Kingdom.
Yeah. I know it is our alumni who is behind it. You know,
bragging rights.
Yeah, bragging rights. But you see that when we have now our brilliant own journalists or people in the media bringing out now high quality content, then we are very glad that we're moving.
Thank you.
Victor, closing comments.
Next week on 3rd, when we are doing the World Press Freedom Day, we have organized a whole day conference where we have invited all you, including editors, and that time is Journalism Matters. Leave your desk. These media houses belong to media owners. Leave your desk, come and discuss, and issues will be discussed around us. We are launching a report actually on the impact of social media on mainstream media that we commission, and we are launching it that day again. Have a copy and read. In the evening, we will be rewarding journalists who have done well on 3rd May, and again we invite you guys to join
and participate.
Brilliant stories from all our media houses.
Absolutely.
Come around. And also, let's continue engaging. We are happy.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. We'll have to wrap it up right there. Clay Muganda, editor with The Standard. We also have Victor Bwire, who is the deputy CEO, MCK, and Kokyo Ching, who is a lecturer with USIU. Thank you so very much. Just to read a few comments. Journalists must have good writing skills, and that's a comment that's coming through. We also have how KTN is no match to any other station. They do things the way they only can. And I think that's a good place to let me not read anymore. Well, we'll have to end it up right there. And do stay with us right here on KTN. We've got news headlines coming up shortly, but also we'll be looking at your health later on. So do stay with us right here on Morning Express.